What if everything you believe about wealth, purpose, and spirituality has been based on concepts distorted over the centuries? What if, in reality, the greatest biblical millionaires knew a secret that has been hidden and misinterpreted by most people to this day? The conventional view teaches us that money is dangerous, that ambition can be a path to ruin, and that humility means giving up prosperity. But is that really what God intended to teach? History shows us men and women who not only amassed immeasurable wealth, but were also guided by a greater divine purpose, aligned with spiritual laws that few understand. What makes these biblical figures so different from those who struggle financially today? Is there something deeper in how they viewed abundance, a principle that most people simply ignore? Get ready, because what you're about to discover here could completely transform your perspective on wealth and spirituality. Now stop and think for a moment. Why do some people seem destined for success and prosperity, while others tirelessly struggle without ever achieving true abundance? Have you ever felt like there's an invisible barrier preventing your life from flowing financially, even when you work so hard? Are wealth and spirituality on opposite sides, or is there a greater purpose behind money that few can see? In the Bible, we find figures like Solomon, Abraham, Job, and Joseph of Egypt, who not only acquired extraordinary fortunes, but also had a powerful spiritual connection that guided every step of their lives. However, what many don't realize is that these men didn't just receive wealth. They applied sacred principles that led them to a level of prosperity that went far beyond material possessions. And the most astonishing part, these principles are still accessible to anyone who has eyes to see and ears to hear. Throughout this video, we'll reveal the hidden secrets behind the wealth of biblical millionaires and, more importantly, we'll expose the fatal mistake that prevents many people from achieving true prosperity. We're not just talking about money. We're talking about a complete transformation in how you view life, opportunities, and the divine purpose that governs your journey. If you've made it this far, it means there's something inside you asking for answers, for clarity, for a new direction. And this knowledge could be the missing key to unlocking the flow of abundance in your life. But before we get to the most impactful revelation, we need to build this knowledge step by step, so you can understand exactly how these principles work and how you can apply them to your reality. So, pay close attention, because each part of this video will bring insights that could completely change the way you view your relationship with wealth and spirituality. What does the Bible really say about wealth? Since ancient times, the concept of wealth has always been surrounded by heated debates. For many, wealth simply means the possession of material goods, accumulated money, and a luxurious lifestyle. But is that really what the Bible teaches? God's word speaks of prosperity as something much deeper than the accumulation of earthly riches. The true meaning of prosperity, according to Scripture, is tied to fullness, balance, and the ability to positively impact the lives of others. However, over the centuries, this view has been distorted, creating a divide between those who believe poverty is a spiritual virtue and those who see money as an instrument of power and domination. What the Bible shows us, however, is that wealth itself is neither good nor evil. It is simply a tool that reflects the heart of the one who possesses it. Many people confuse spiritual wealth with material wealth, but they are completely distinct concepts. Spiritual wealth is associated with wisdom, understanding, and alignment with divine principles. It is the kind of prosperity that strengthens us internally, gives us peace and purpose, and guides us to a meaningful life. Material wealth, on the other hand, refers to tangible assets such as money, property, and possessions. But here's the crucial point. The Bible does not condemn material wealth. The problem arises when it becomes an idol in the heart of the individual. When money becomes the center of a person's life, taking the place that should be reserved for God, it ceases to be a blessing and becomes a curse. However, when wealth is acquired and managed with wisdom and purpose, it can be a powerful tool for good. Many religions teach, directly or indirectly, that money is the root of all evil, leading millions of people to believe that seeking financial prosperity is a sinful act. But this belief is a major misconception based on a misinterpretation of the Bible. The famous passage in 1 Timothy 6 verse 10 says that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, not money itself. This means that it is not the possession of money that corrupts, but rather greed, idolatry, and the uncontrollable desire for enrichment at any cost. Men like Solomon, Abraham, and Job possessed immense fortunes, and God never condemned them for it. On the contrary, Their wealth was the result of divine blessings and the application of correct spiritual principles. So why do so many people still believe that being rich is incompatible with faith? The idea that God wants his children to live in scarcity is one of the greatest distortions of faith. Unfortunately, this belief has been spread over the centuries through misinterpretations and even manipulated readings of Scripture. Many believe that living in poverty is a sign of humility and holiness, but the Bible shows us a completely different reality. Jesus never said that poverty was a requirement for salvation. On the contrary, he taught that detachment from money was essential, but this did not mean we should reject prosperity. The real issue is not whether we have money or not, but what we do with it. Poverty, when imposed, can be a form of slavery, limiting opportunities and preventing people from fulfilling their divine purposes. If God is a loving Father, would it make sense for him to want his children to live in misery and need? The Bible is filled with passages that show God desires his people to prosper. In Deuteronomy 8 verse 18 it is written, "But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth." This verse teaches us that prosperity is a gift from God, as long as it is used responsibly. Furthermore, in Jeremiah 29 verse 11 he declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These texts reinforce that prosperity is part of God's plan, but this prosperity goes far beyond money. When we speak of prosperity in the Bible, we are talking about a state of fullness that encompasses all areas of life: health, relationships, spiritual growth, and yes, finances. True abundance is not just about a full bank account, but about peace of mind and the ability to live a life aligned with divine purpose. This is why many biblical millionaires not only accumulated wealth, but also became sources of blessing for others. Abraham, for example, was blessed to be a blessing to the nations. Job had his wealth doubled after proving his faith. Joseph of Egypt used his position to save multitudes from famine. In other words, prosperity always had a greater purpose. Can having money bring someone closer to God or drive them away? The answer depends on the heart of the person who possesses that wealth. There are people who, upon gaining money, become arrogant, greedy, and forget spiritual principles. For these people, money becomes a snare, a trap. However, there are those who understand that prosperity is a means to do good, to expand their impact on the world, and to live with more purpose. Wealth can be a test, and that's why Jesus said it is harder for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. But he didn't say it was impossible. It all depends on where the person's heart lies. The problem has never been money itself, but rather our relationship with it. The Bible teaches us to seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to us. Matthew 6 verse 33. This means that the priority must always be alignment with divine principles, and as a consequence, prosperity will become a natural reality. But many people do the opposite. They make money their priority and end up drifting away from God. The secret of the biblical millionaires was exactly the opposite. They prioritized God, and he blessed them abundantly. Many people are trapped in a mindset of scarcity and fear. They believe they will never have enough money, that they are not worthy of prospering, or that wealth belongs only to a select group of people. This mindset creates invisible barriers that block the flow of abundance. The biblical millionaires, on the other hand, had a different perspective. They trusted in God and his promises. They did not see wealth as an end, but as a means to fulfill their mission. If God wants his children to prosper, then why do so many people still live in financial hardship? The answer to this question will be revealed throughout this video. We will explore the most common mistakes that prevent people from achieving true prosperity and how you can apply divine principles to transform your life. The final revelation may completely change your perspective on wealth, so keep watching, because what comes next is eye-opening. Who were the biblical millionaires? The Bible is filled with stories of men who not only amassed great wealth, but also lived according to divine principles. Many of them were chosen by God to fulfill grand missions, and their prosperity was not a mere coincidence, but the result of a spiritual covenant and the application of divine wisdom. However, what set these men apart from others? What did they know about wealth that many today ignore? Their stories not only demonstrate that God does not condemn prosperity, but also reveal timeless secrets about how to achieve abundance wisely and in alignment with divine purpose. Let's explore how some of the greatest biblical millionaires acquired their wealth and the lessons we can draw from their journeys. When we talk about wealth in the Bible, It's impossible not to mention Solomon, the king who possessed an incalculable fortune and extraordinary wisdom. His reign was marked by unprecedented prosperity, making him one of the most fascinating figures in biblical history. But what made Solomon so rich? The answer lies in the request he made to God. Unlike many, Solomon did not ask for riches or power. He asked for wisdom to govern justly. In response to this humility and discernment, God granted him not only wisdom, but also prosperity that surpassed that of any king before him. This teaches us a fundamental principle. True wealth is born from knowledge and applied wisdom. When we seek wisdom first, all other things are added to us. Abraham is one of the most iconic figures in the Bible, and his story of prosperity is a testament to the power of faith and covenant with God. He was called to leave his homeland and journey into the unknown, trusting entirely in God's promises. And what happened? God blessed him abundantly. Abraham accumulated land, livestock, gold, and silver, becoming one of the wealthiest men of his time. However, his wealth did not come by chance. It was the fruit of a mindset of obedience and trust. He understood that true prosperity was not just about material possessions, but about being aligned with God's plan. His story teaches us that when we follow spiritual principles and trust in God, prosperity naturally manifests in our lives. The story of Job is one of the greatest testimonies of resilience and faith in the face of adversity. He was an extremely wealthy man, owning vast properties, herds, and a prosperous family. However, at one point he lost everything: his wealth, his health, and even his children. But what set Job apart? His unshakable faith. Even in the midst of the greatest trials, he never abandoned his trust in God. And at the end of his journey, he not only recovered everything he had lost, but received double what he had before. Job's story teaches us a crucial principle. True wealth is not based solely on what we have, but on the faith we carry. Even in the most difficult moments, those who remain steadfast in their spiritual walk are restored and multiplied. Joseph of Egypt is one of the greatest examples of how wisdom, resilience, and faith can transform an apparently tragic destiny into a life of prosperity and leadership. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. But instead of giving in to despair, Joseph used his gifts to interpret dreams and demonstrate his strategic intelligence. His abilities led him to become the second most powerful man in Egypt, managing the entire economy of the empire and saving thousands of lives from famine. His secret lay in management and preparation. He taught Pharaoh how to manage times of abundance to avoid future crises. This story shows us that true prosperity does not come solely from what we possess, but from how we manage and multiply what we receive. Isaac lived one of the greatest examples of prosperity, even in the midst of scarcity. During a time of great famine, when many were losing everything, he decided to act with strategy and faith. Instead of despairing, he sowed in the dry land and, surprisingly, reaped 100-fold more than he planted. This miracle did not happen by chance. He trusted in divine provision and applied principles of hard work and persistence. While many retreated, he advanced, and God prospered him supernaturally. Isaac's story teaches us that no matter how difficult the circumstances around us may be, when we follow the right principles and remain faithful, abundance manifests where we least expect it. Now that we know the journeys of the biblical millionaires, we can see recurring patterns. None of them sought wealth out of vanity or greed. They all had something in common: wisdom, obedience, faith, and purpose. They did not see money as an end, but as a means to fulfill something greater. Solomon asked for wisdom before riches. Abraham trusted in God's promise. Job remained steadfast in faith even after losing everything. Joseph used his intelligence to benefit an entire nation. Isaac planted in times of crisis and reaped abundantly. These lessons are timeless. When we apply the same principles, we too can experience prosperity in our lives. The Bible never condemned wealth. It only warned about the dangers of the love of money. These biblical millionaires did not become rich by chance. They understood that prosperity is part of a greater plan. True wealth is not measured solely by a bank balance, but by the positive impact we can generate around us. They use their influence to build, help, lead, and transform lives. When we understand that prosperity is a tool and not an end in itself, we can align our lives with divine purpose without losing our way. If there's one thing these biblical millionaires teach us, it's that wealth can be a great blessing or a great trap. It all depends on the heart of the one who possesses it. Money can amplify both the good and bad intentions of a person. Those who understand wealth as a means to fulfill their purpose are blessed and multiplied. On the other hand, those who place money above everything else end up in ruin. Looking at these stories, it's clear that wealth is not the problem. The problem is how we relate to it. If we apply the right principles, seek wisdom, trust in God, and understand that money is merely a tool, we can experience prosperity in a balanced and blessed way. But are most people doing this the right way? Or is there a fatal mistake that prevents many from achieving true prosperity? In the next moments, we'll reveal one of the greatest misconceptions that keep people from divine wealth. And the answer may surprise you. Now that we understand who the biblical millionaires were and how their stories reveal the purpose of wealth, it's time to dive into the principles that made these people extraordinary. Prosperity was not an accident in their lives. It was the result of the conscious application of spiritual laws and practices that remain valid to this day. If you want to transform your financial reality and align your life with divine purpose, you need to understand and apply these secrets that the Bible reveals to us. The secret principles they used to become rich. The wealth of Solomon did not begin with money, but with wisdom. When he had the opportunity to ask God for anything, he did not ask for gold, lands, or power. He asked for discernment to govern with justice. This is the first and most important principle of prosperity. Before material wealth, there is wisdom to manage it. And this does not only apply to kings of antiquity. Today we can see that those who achieve lasting success are those who have learned to make wise decisions, avoid waste, and invest in knowledge. A poor mind can never sustain a rich bank account. If you desire prosperity, the first step is to seek wisdom, both spiritual and practical. The way we think directly influences our financial reality. If we analyze biblical millionaires, we will notice that none of them had a scarcity mentality. They fully trusted in divine provision and acted with the conviction that prosperity was a reflection of the covenant with God. Many people, however, grow up hearing that money is something dirty, that wealth is a sin, and that being humble means living in lack. These thoughts create invisible barriers that block the flow of abundance. The first step to financial transformation is to change the way you view money. It is not an enemy nor a god. It is just a tool. And like any tool, it can be used to build or to destroy. This is one of the most powerful secrets of the Bible when we talk about prosperity. The concept of sowing and reaping does not only apply to agriculture. It is a spiritual principle that governs all areas of life, including finances. In Galatians 6 verse 7, it is written, "Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." This means that everything we plant, whether in time, energy, knowledge, or resources, returns to us multiplied. Biblical millionaires understood this principle deeply. They invested in their faith, in their community, in their skills, and even in their generosity. Those who wish to reap prosperity must first sow correctly. The Bible teaches us that prosperity is not static. It expands to those who know how to manage it. Jesus spoke about this in the parable of the talents, Matthew 25 verses 14 to 30, where a master entrusted different amounts of talents to his servants. Those who invested and multiplied what they received were rewarded, but the one who buried his talent out of fear lost even the little he had. This lesson is clear. Prosperity grows in the hands of those who use it intelligently. Many people do not prosper because, instead of multiplying what they receive, they spend everything impulsively or let fear hinder their growth. Biblical millionaires knew that well-applied money turns into more money, whether through investments, negotiations, or good decisions. Another secret of biblical millionaires was their discipline in resource management. Joseph of Egypt, for example, is a classic case of effective financial management. He foresaw a period of scarcity and, during the years of abundance, stored enough grain to sustain an entire nation. This principle remains valid today. Many do not prosper because they do not know how to manage what they already have. They live spending everything they earn without planning, without thinking about the future, and without strategy. The difference between those who get rich and those who live in constant struggle is not just in how much they earn, but in how they manage what they have. God is not a God of disorder. If we observe the biblical stories, we will see that those who prospered had well-defined strategies for managing their wealth. Joseph planned stocks for times of crisis. Solomon built an empire by managing his kingdom's resources well. Abraham knew when to invest and where to expand his possessions. Money cannot be treated as something random. It needs direction. One of the great mistakes of people today is living without a financial plan. If you want to change your financial life, start by setting goals, controlling your expenses, and directing your money towards productive investments. Another fundamental principle that biblical millionaires understood was that wealth without purpose is destruction. The Bible shows us many examples of people who accumulated wealth but ended up straying, such as King Saul and even Judas. This teaches us that money, without a divine purpose, can corrupt and lead to ruin. On the other hand, those who used their wealth to fulfill a greater purpose were honored and multiplied. The question we must ask is not only how to get rich, but rather, what is the purpose of my wealth? The Bible never condemned money, but always warned about the love of it. The real problem is not possessing wealth, but letting it possess you. The biblical millionaires who prospered healthily were those who saw money as a means, not an end. They knew that wealth should serve the divine purpose, not the other way around. Many lose everything because they make money their sole objective, sacrificing values, family, and spirituality in pursuit of accumulation. This is the path to ruin. True success comes when we understand that prosperity must be subordinate to something greater. Many people live a dilemma between wanting to prosper and feeling guilty for desiring more. But the truth is that prosperity and spirituality are not opposites. They can and should walk together. Biblical millionaires understood that when God is placed first, all other things are added. Matthew 6 verse 33. This means that the key to a financially blessed life is not just in human effort, but also in surrender and trust in the divine purpose. Now that you know the principles that biblical millionaires used to prosper, the question is, are you applying this in your life? Have you sought wisdom before wealth? Are you sowing correctly to reap prosperity? Are you managing well the resources God has already placed in your hands? Or are you making the fatal mistake that prevents many people from achieving true success? In the next moments, we will uncover this mistake and show how you can reverse this situation to unlock the flow of abundance in your life. What comes next may be the key you were missing to finally experience prosperity in the right way. The biggest mistake people make when seeking prosperity. One of the biggest mistakes people make when seeking prosperity is treating money as an end, not a means. Many people spend their entire lives obsessed with accumulating wealth, but without a greater purpose to guide them. The Bible teaches us that prosperity must be aligned with a divine purpose, otherwise it becomes empty and destructive. Solomon, for example, asked for wisdom before riches because he knew that without wisdom, money could lead him to ruin. On the other hand, there are those who do not prosper because they simply reject money, believing it to be something impure. Both extremes are harmful. The true secret lies in balance. Seeking prosperity not only for personal benefit, but to fulfill a greater purpose and make a difference in the world. Obsession with money can lead a person to make wrong choices, distancing them from their true mission and often even from their faith. When someone seeks wealth only for the desire to have more, without a greater objective, they end up falling into traps such as greed, corruption, and loss of values. Jesus warned about this by saying, "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" Mark 8 verse 36. The story of Judas is a classic example of how love for money can lead to destruction. He sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, thinking he was securing a financial advantage, but ended his life filled with remorse and tragic death. This teaches us that money without purpose can be a great trap. Another very common mistake is not correctly applying biblical principles about prosperity. Many people believe that it is enough to pray and wait for God to send money from heaven. However, the Bible teaches us that prosperity is the result of action, faith, and obedience to divine principles. Abraham prospered because he obeyed God's call. Joseph prospered because he used his intelligence to manage resources. Isaac prospered because he planted even in times of crisis. Solomon prospered because he asked for wisdom. They all followed one principle, faith accompanied by action. Just wishing for prosperity without acting according to God's principles will never lead to real results. The Bible teaches us that everything we sow, we reap. This principle does not only apply to spiritual life, but also to financial life. Many wish to prosper but do not practice generosity, do not invest in knowledge, do not work to multiply their resources. How can we expect to reap fruits if we never plant seeds? Jesus taught us the parable of the talents to show that those who know how to invest and multiply what they have are rewarded, while those who hide their resources out of fear end up losing even the little they possess. If you desire prosperity, you need to learn to sow correctly. Another major mistake that prevents many people from prospering is the belief in scarcity. Often, these beliefs were taught from childhood. Money is hard to earn, the rich are greedy, money corrupts. I wasn't born to be prosperous. These phrases create invisible barriers in the mind and make the person sabotage themselves without realizing it. Biblical millionaires never had a scarcity mentality. On the contrary, they trusted in God's abundance and acted with faith. Those who believe that prosperity is something bad will never be able to achieve it. Many people feel guilty for wanting a better financial life, as if this were a sign of lack of faith or humility. This thought is a mistake. God never wanted His children to live in misery or need. Poverty is not a sign of elevated spirituality. In fact, it can often be a limitation that prevents people from fulfilling their mission. When well managed, wealth can be a blessing that allows helping more people, creating opportunities, and contributing to greater causes. The problem is not money, but the heart of the one who possesses it. Gratitude is one of the most powerful principles to attract prosperity. Many people live complaining about what they do not have instead of being thankful for what they already possess. The problem is that this attitude creates a spiritual and energetic block. The Bible teaches us that those who are faithful with little will be entrusted with much. Luke 16 verse 10. This means that if you cannot appreciate what you have now, you will hardly receive more. Gratitude opens doors to abundance, while complaining closes paths. Biblical millionaires knew this and always honored God for what they possessed. Many do not prosper because they live in a constant state of fear and anxiety about the future. This fear blocks the ability to make bold decisions and act with faith. Biblical millionaires had something in common. They fully trusted in God. Even in moments of crisis, like in the cases of Job and Joseph of Egypt, they maintained faith that God would provide. And abundance came because they did not give up. If you want prosperity, you need to abandon fear and trust more in the divine process. The good news is that these mistakes can be corrected. If you have placed money above purpose, realign your life. If you fear wealth, start seeing money as a tool for good. If you have not applied the principles of prosperity, start practicing them consciously. If you have been complaining more than being thankful, change your posture. Small changes in mindset and attitude can completely transform your financial and spiritual life. Now that you understand the mistakes that prevent many people from prospering, the big question is, how to correct this in practice and unlock true abundance in your life. In the next part of this video, we will reveal one of the greatest secrets that biblical millionaires knew and that many ignore to this day. This information can completely change the way you view wealth and spirituality. If you have come this far, get ready, because the revelation that follows may be what was missing to transform your financial and spiritual life forever. But before we get to this revelation, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have a golden touch, while others struggle tirelessly and never manage to get out of the same place? There is a hidden principle that biblical millionaires knew, the true key to unlocking prosperity. But this information has been distorted and concealed over the centuries. Few understand its real meaning, and because of this, they end up trapped in cycles of scarcity without realizing it. What you will discover here could be the turning point between continuing to struggle financially or finally accessing abundance in a correct and aligned way with the divine purpose. But before we reveal this powerful secret, we need to take an essential step, understanding how you can become prosperous without making the mistakes that block abundance. Next, you will see the necessary mindset changes, practical steps to align wealth and spirituality, and tools that can transform your financial reality today. If you want to unlock the flow of prosperity, pay close attention to what comes next. How can you become prosperous without making these mistakes? The first step to accessing prosperity is to change your mindset. Many grew up hearing that money is a sin, that desiring wealth is wrong, and that the humble should live in scarcity. This limiting belief keeps countless people away from prosperity. But when we look at the Bible, we see that God never condemned wealth. He condemned the idolatry of money. There is a big difference between seeking prosperity as a selfish end and using it as a means to fulfill a greater purpose. Biblical millionaires saw money as a tool, not as their master. They knew that true wealth was not just in the gold or the lands they owned, but in their ability to impact lives and transform the world around them. If you desire to prosper, you need to abandon the scarcity mindset and start seeing abundance as part of God's plan for your life. If mindset is the first step, action is the second. None of the biblical millionaires waited for wealth to simply fall from the sky. They all took concrete actions to build their prosperity. So, how can you align wealth and divine purpose in your life? The first step is to identify your calling and mission. Everything God created has a purpose, and it is within this purpose that prosperity manifests. The second step is to act with excellence in everything you do. Joseph of Egypt prospered because he was excellent in everything, from when he was a slave to when he became governor. The third step is to have discipline and perseverance. Many people give up halfway, but prosperity requires consistency. Finally, live according to divine principles. Be honest, work with justice, be generous, and maintain unwavering faith. The Bible teaches us one of the most powerful principles of prosperity: sowing and reaping. Many people want to reap but forget to sow. Everything in life follows this principle. Those who sow knowledge reap wisdom. Those who sow effort reap results. Those who sow generosity reap abundance. Jesus himself said, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap." Luke 6 verse 38. This means that prosperity is linked to your willingness to sow. This does not only mean giving money. It means investing in learning, developing skills, helping others, and acting with generosity in all areas of life. The more you sow with purpose, the more God multiplies what you have. To transform your financial life, you need practical tools. The first one is financial management based on biblical wisdom. Solomon wrote Proverbs filled with teachings on how to manage money wisely. The second step is to have a financial plan. Joseph of Egypt prospered because he knew how to plan, store, and invest at the right times. Having a well-defined budget, avoiding unnecessary debts, and learning to invest are fundamental attitudes for those who desire lasting prosperity. Another essential tool is the practice of gratitude. Many people live complaining about what they do not have, but forget that gratitude opens doors to abundance. When you honor what you already have, God trusts you with more. None of the biblical millionaires achieved wealth overnight. Abraham waited years for the fulfillment of the promise. Joseph faced betrayals and imprisonment before becoming governor. Job lost everything before receiving double his wealth. This teaches us that prosperity does not happen in human time, but in God's time. Many give up before receiving the blessing because they cannot endure the process. But those who remain faithful and persevering are rewarded. Prosperity is not just a destination. It is a journey of growth, learning, and faith. Now that you know how to align wealth and spirituality, how to change your mindset, and how to apply practical principles in your daily life, a fundamental question arises. What is the secret that biblical millionaires knew and that many still ignore? You have already realized that prosperity is not just about money, but about purpose and divine principles. But there is a crucial detail that could be the decisive factor between a life of scarcity and a life of abundance. This secret has been distorted over the centuries, preventing many people from prospering. And this is what we will reveal in the next part of this video. What comes next may be the final piece that was missing to transform your perspective on money, faith, and success. Get ready because the big revelation is coming. We have reached the most anticipated moment of this video. Everything we discussed until now was essential to prepare your mind and heart for this revelation, because you are now about to discover the secret that biblical millionaires knew and many ignore to this day. This knowledge, distorted and concealed over the centuries, is the true key to unlocking prosperity in alignment with divine principles. Many spend their entire lives seeking wealth in the wrong way, trapped in cycles of scarcity, without realizing that the answer has always been before them, in the scriptures themselves. But today, this truth will be revealed, and if you understand and apply it, you can experience a real transformation in your financial and spiritual life. So, stay tuned, because what you are about to discover could be the turning point between continuing to struggle without results or finally accessing abundance in the way God planned for you. The secret that biblical millionaires knew and many ignore. Now that we have gone through this entire journey of learning and deconstructing limiting beliefs, the moment of revelation has arrived. What differentiated the biblical millionaires from most people was not just their faith, nor just their hard work. It was the deep understanding of a spiritual principle that few apply correctly: the connection between purpose and prosperity. They knew that money should not be the center of their lives, but rather a consequence of living aligned with the divine purpose. When you understand that prosperity is not about chasing money, but about attracting the right resources while walking in the correct purpose. The way you see your financial life changes completely. The great truth is that wealth without purpose becomes destruction, but when you are aligned with your spiritual calling, prosperity becomes inevitable. If this truth is so powerful, why have most people never heard of it? Why do so many religions and beliefs preach that wealth and spirituality cannot coexist? The answer lies in the manipulation of information and the fear of empowering people. For centuries, it was taught that poverty was a spiritual virtue, while wealth was seen as a sign of corruption. But this idea does not come from God. It was distorted by systems that wanted to keep the masses dependent and powerless. The Bible never condemned prosperity. It only warned against greed and selfishness. The real problem is not money, but how it is used and what position it occupies in each person's heart. Biblical millionaires were not rich because they loved money, but because they understood that prosperity was a means to fulfill a greater purpose. The secret that biblical millionaires applied and many ignore to this day is total surrender to wisdom and divine principles as the foundation of prosperity. Money was never the main goal of Solomon, Abraham, Job, or Joseph. They sought wisdom, obedience, and justice first. The Bible says in Proverbs 3 verses 9 to 10, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the firstfruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine." This means that prosperity begins with the recognition that everything comes from God and must be managed with wisdom. Those who understand this principle do not live in a frantic pursuit of money, but create value, serve others, and consequently attract wealth. Now that you know this truth, the big question arises: how to put it into practice? The first step is alignment with your purpose. You must understand what mission God has placed in your life and work to manifest it in the world. The second step is to act with excellence in everything you do. Joseph of Egypt excelled wherever he was, even in adversity, and his competence opened doors for his prosperity. The third step is to practice gratitude and generosity. Biblical millionaires understood that to receive more, it was necessary to share. Generosity is a channel of flow. When you keep everything to yourself, you block the circulation of prosperity. And finally, the fourth step is to have discipline and financial wisdom. No wealth is sustainable without good management. Joseph did not just interpret dreams, but he also planned Egypt's financial future. If you truly want to prosper, you need to change your mindset about money and purpose. Many people live in fear of scarcity, trapped in the belief that they will never have enough. This thought creates invisible barriers that prevent abundance from manifesting. Biblical millionaires had a different mindset. They trusted in divine provision, but they also did their part. Faith without action does not yield results. You must believe that God desires your prosperity, but you must also work to make it a reality. Instead of asking, "Why don't I have money?" ask yourself, "What can I do to create more value in the world and fulfill my purpose?" This simple mindset adjustment can be the first step to transforming your financial life. Now that you know the secret of biblical millionaires and understand how true prosperity manifests, it is up to you to make a decision. Continue living the same way or apply this knowledge and change your reality. God has already given you the tools, the principles, the wisdom, and the understanding are accessible to all. But only those who decide to act, change their mindset, and align their lives with the divine purpose can experience true abundance. The choice is yours. The question that remains is, what will you do with this revelation? Because now, you can no longer say that you did not know. Throughout this video, we have uncovered deep truths about the wealth of biblical millionaires and the principles that led them to prosperity. We have seen that the Bible never condemned wealth, but rather the love of money and its mismanagement. We have learned that the greatest millionaires in biblical history, Solomon, Abraham, Joseph of Egypt, Job, and Isaac, prospered because they understood that wealth is not an end, but a means to fulfill a greater purpose. We talked about the mistakes that prevent many people from prospering, such as the scarcity mindset, the frenzied pursuit of money without purpose, and the lack of application of the correct principles. Moreover, we revealed the great secret that biblical millionaires knew and many ignore to this day. True prosperity comes from wisdom, connection with God, and conscious management of resources. And now that you know this truth, a fundamental question arises. What will you do with this revelation? Knowing these truths is only the first step. What really makes a difference is how you will apply them in your life. You can simply ignore everything said here and continue living the same way, Or you can take a step of faith and start changing your mindset, your actions, and your relationship with prosperity. Knowledge without action does not generate transformation. Biblical millionaires did not prosper only because they believed in abundance. They took concrete steps to achieve and multiply their wealth, always aligned with divine principles. And you? Will you continue to be trapped in the limiting beliefs that prevent your prosperity? Or will you start applying the teachings that can change your life? The path is before you, and the decision is in your hands. Prosperity is a divine gift, but only those who are willing to receive it with responsibility and purpose can fully experience it. It is not just about having money, but about living an abundant life in every sense, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and family-wise. If this video made sense to you, share this knowledge with others, because many still live trapped in the lies that limit their lives. And remember, God does not want you to live in scarcity. He wants you to prosper so that you can be a channel of blessings to the world. If you want to continue learning and applying principles that can transform your life, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and leave your comment below. I want to know, what was the greatest revelation you had today? Now, it's your turn to act. Thank you for accompanying me this far. If this content resonated with your heart, follow the channel, like, and share this video with others who may also identify with it. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden truths about the prosperity of the chosen ones, then there is something even deeper that you need to discover. You may be one of the most powerful chosen ones, and you haven't even realized it yet. There are 7 signs that prove this, signs that few recognize, but that explain why your journey has been so challenging and unique. They don't want you to know this, but now you will have this revelation. Click on the next video that is appearing on the screen now, and discover if you carry these signs. This could be the missing piece to transform your life. Fire Eye.